Hello, and welcome to Black Marriage Therapy, BMT for short. Here we become students of marriage in order to create healthy, long-lasting relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Smith, and in today's episode, we discuss sex in marriage, but from a man's perspective. In season 1, I took the time to discuss sex in marriage and how it has transformed over the 10 years of my relationship. And for this episode, I decided to bring on a very special guest to discuss sex deeper, but from a male's perspective. The last episode where we talked about sex was mainly from my perspective. And I was very curious if my husband had a similar or a very different experience than I did over the course of our marriage. So I asked Junior to think about 5 things that he felt has transformed his sex life over the course of our marriage and to kind of share with us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Junior Smith.
Hello. We got to stop meeting like this.
Why do you always do that?
I want to be formal. Hello, people. First and foremost, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for allowing me to be here, waking me up this morning.
You churchy.
I'm grateful for my wife. I love everything you're doing on this podcast. You're taking it to newer heights. I also want to thank myself for putting in the hard work and dedication needed in order to be here today. So thank you.
Thank you, I guess. So if you have been listening to my podcast for a while, you kind of know the flow of how I speak and all those things. This episode is not going to be that. For some reason, every time my husband gets on the episode, it turns a lot more ratchet than I want it to. And I think it's because of him. So, hey, just hang with us for a little bit. So to jump in, we're just going to start with Junior's first point. Okay. As he kind of explains, I may have some questions to help us have better understanding and to clarify. Yes. And also probably some pop culture references because I feel like we call them the podcast bros. I feel like there's a lot of men on social media.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who are spewing different things.
Oh, spewing.
I feel like it's spewing.
Okay. I didn't know where that sentence was going. I thought you were going to say a lot of guys on podcasts who are talking and being more open.
I feel like there's more guys who are spewing.
Just gushing.
Yeah.
Like a gusher.
You know, and they're talking about things that I personally feel like it's obvious that they don't have true experience in.
Okay.
Right? So
now I'm knowing why I'm really here. Okay.
So let's start with your first point.
Yeah. This is just my opinion, guys, by the way. I'm not trying to correct the gushers. But I do want to share, something I believe is real. So I did want to start with the definition because you always start with the definition.
I do always start with the definition.
So I want to start with the definition because you got it from me.
What?
No, for real.
No.
Anyway.
No, you didn't. So I didn't get that from you.
I wanted to
this is my
I'm really trying to move on.
Wait.
I'm really trying to move on.
Pause. This is my podcast.
Okay.
This is my podcast.
But I'm an English teacher. I usually define things to have a better understanding.
I did not get that from you. Okay. Give me credit where credit is due.
I like you starting with a definition, but definition is always a great place to start. So in defining sex, sex is a system that works best in marriage. I want to talk about this definition so that we can use it as a point of reference as I move forward. We know what I mean when I'm talking about sex. So it's a system that works best in marriage. Besides procreation, its other intended purpose is pleasure. So that when you're having sex with your spouse, together you can experience a high alertness of sexual pleasure and the deep calm afterwards. And with each sexual embrace, you're emotionally bonding to this person again and again. And so a craving for sex is transformed into a desire for one another. And so that's why I say sex produces marriage-like feelings. Even if you're not married, it produces that marriage-like feeling. It produces that desire for one another. So yeah, let's use that as a frame of reference as I discuss sex throughout this talk.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you feel like men should wait to have sex in marriage.
Point number one. Point number one.
Wait. I'm here to add,
derail.
No, not derail. Just, but obviously a lot of people who listen to us know that we're Christians.
Yeah.
So it's not unfamiliar to hear that that you're encouraging sex in marriage.
I am encouraging sex in marriage. I want to be very clear. Like I said, I started with that on purpose. Sex is a system that works best in marriage.
That works best in marriage.
I
like that.
Because you don't want to. So I said the purpose, right, is a craving that's transformed into desire for one another. And you get marriage-like feelings. You don't want marriage-like feelings for someone you're not trying to get married to. You don't want to have that sexual embrace emotionally bonding to a person you don't want to be emotionally bonded to. So that's what I'm saying. We got to check, And so I think in marriage, it works the best because these things that are repercussions outside of marriage are actually benefits now because it continues to bring you back to your mate.
So in that case, because it's interesting, because my first point was that consent in marriage, because I think that people don't think about how sex can harm you even in marriage, right? So although it is best practice for marriage, there's still some harm that happens in marriage. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get into that, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm not. Point number one.
Wait. My question is...
Can a nigga finish?
Dude, you're already off track.
I'm actually the most on track. I didn't get to point number one.
Well, yeah.
You keep stopping me.
That's okay. So yeah, I'll let you finish. But I just think I'm not gonna derail you because I don't want to get you all mixed up or whatever. We'll just go on to your first point.
Thank you.
Okay, whatever.
Kindly.
Okay.
My first point is learning my real libido.
Okay.
So libido is, and I'll go on to explain. Libido is your sex drive.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. Anyway, in the beginning of our marriage, I was having as much sex as I wanted. And I don't say that with joy because now I realize the pressure I put on you to have it that way. And I think now, currently, things have changed for me in my libido for sure. And I think that all started when we started having kids. Honestly speaking, because I thought about it before in the past, my sex drive, my libido, but I did not seriously think about it at all. But it's not until we had kids, where we had the longest stretch of time without sex. At that point, I was like, man, can't have sex with my wife, can't watch pornography. I don't want to watch porn. A lot of married men do that, by the way. They watch porn when they can't have sex with their wife, thinking that it doesn't hurt anybody. But I said, okay, what if I just have sex less? And that was the first time I entertained that thought for real. It was when you had, Eden, our first kid.
Wow.
That was my first time entertaining that thought for real. And so I did. That's what I did. I decided to have less sex so that, I would be able to function and be able to not be crazed. And over a period of time, I started to realize, there were certain impulses that I would have. That if I wait 10 minutes, the impulse would go away. To the point where when sex was back on the table, I still continued to have sex less.
So I actually really love that point, and I have a question.
Yes.
So it's interesting because you said that you lowered your libido.
Yes.
Now, in popular culture...
I didn't lower it.
No, you didn't lower it.
No.
What'd you do?
I had an inflated libido.
You had an inflated libido. Okay, that's very interesting because they make it seem like, and when I say they, I mean society, culture, that men have this insatiable desire that must be met or fulfilled or all hell is going to break loose. So the question is, how much of men's libido or sex drive is natural, do you think, and how much of it is taught?
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month slows. Full terms at mintmobile.com.
Awesome. I can't answer for all men. First thing that's gonna come out my mouth.
Okay, that's good.
It's not a blanket statement.
I appreciate that.
No, it's definitely a mixture of nature and nurture, for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Do men need sex? Yes. Do men need to have sex once every 3 days or else they'll explode? No. It's not the truth. Right? And I think, we do live in a sex crazed well, I don't want to say world. In America,
Yes.
we live in a sex crazed culture. It's just the truth. And so I think a lot of it is just emulating what we see is being taught to us, where we are regurgitating it. And so sex is not something that's really spoken about amongst men, not in a real way. And so we're regurgitating lies, basically, and trying to emulate things that weren't even true in the beginning. Almost like looking at a Photoshop model on a billboard, but she's been airbrushed and tanned and her neck has been stretched and her lips have been dragged bigger. You can't emulate something that's not real.
Let me ask you something real quick. What is a real way and a fake way? Because you said that men amongst men don't talk about sex in a real way or a fake way.
Well, I mean, and I was going to get to this later, but I'll say it now. I think, when it comes to discussing, sex is a very awkward topic. Very awkward topic.
For men.
Well, in general, like if a married man and married woman were to talk about sex, it would be awkward in the beginning. Honestly,
Yes.
You'd have to keep talking about sex until the awkwardness has been like washed away. You don't have that awkwardness anymore, right? So I think it's hard to start that conversation among married people, even when single men are talking to each other. It's difficult. It's complicated to talk about sex, right? Or married men who are talking to other married men about sex. I think most of the time, what it amounts to is grandstanding, posturing, 3 rounds, you feel me? That's what most of the time, that's what it is. That's why you can't listen to most of that stuff, right? Right? It's the blind leading the blind. So a real conversation is just a person who is being real when they're speaking about sex and talking about the realities of sex rather than just the picture perfect highlights, okay? So maybe a person does last long, but also talk about how, it hurts my wife. Going that fast, going that strong, or going that long, she just doesn't, it's not enjoyable for her, so I don't. A man's not gonna say that. If he can produce 30 minutes of back to back, that's what he's talking about.
Just clapping.
It's clapping. It's an audience of one. That's what he's gonna lead with. That's gonna be his caption under his photo. It's not gonna be, but I restrained myself because of this and this and this. So, we have to just be full circle when we're talking about these things, and usually we're not.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you either wrap up that point or move on to the next point. I'm not gonna hold you.
Yeah. So thank you for helping me to introduce the reason behind my inflated libido. I think that was the reason. Honestly, I think just the sex crazed culture we live in, a product of nature and nurture, right? Because I do like to have sex. And men can have, by the way, they can have naturally high libidos, natural.
Yeah.
Or low libidos, as a matter of fact, natural.
I like that you said that.
No, for sure, definitely. Yeah. And so I mentioned, bringing it back down to a pace that was comfortable for me, even though you could have operated at that level. And I think I wanted to do that because I think of it like a plant. What happens when you overwater a plant? It dies. But that's not what's interesting. What's interesting is how it dies. When you overwater a plant, the roots rot. And that's how it dies. The roots, they rot. Can you see the roots?
No.
No. So what does that mean? That means there are very real implications of oversexing that you will not see until it's too late.
Okay.
That's what that...
Junior is preaching on this episode. Okay, preach.
By the time you realize it, the love is lost, right? And it ends in a $200 therapy session. Or you're undersexing, right? And that ends in a $200 therapy session too. Black marriage therapy. Come see my wife. Shameless plug. So before we do that, let's therapize ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm saying just take a look at your libido. I'm not, because a lot of times we have this libido, we think, this is my natural rate. Nothing was done to influence this. This is me natural. I'm naturally high, naturally expressive, or naturally not as expressive. Yes, that may be true, but at least take a look at it is what I'm trying to say.
I love that. I actually have nothing else to add.
That is a first.
No, I think you wrapped it up so well.
Thank you.
That was so good. Wow. Point 2. Let's move on.
Okay. Point 2 is to perfect sex.
I'm pretty sure you're going to explain this.
I am.
Okay.
If you would give me one moment. It's like I'm putting the food to to my mouth. You're like, you gonna eat that? You're like, I'm breathing right now. Just breathing.
Oh my God.
No, my second point is to perfect sex. And so there is this idea that sex is like a car, is autonomic, is you go in and you go. Good sex, I should say. I'm sorry. I apologize. Good sex is automatic. Mm-hmm. You push start and you go. That's not how good sex operates. That's how sex operates. Yeah, you just hop into bed and you go. But not good sex. So you have to perfect good sex. And so sure, you may have a move that pleased 99% of the women you're with, but now you're with your wife and she's different. She is different. So you're going to have to learn her. And there may be some things that are similar and there may be things that are different, but don't just go in there and give the default and think that you got it all the time. Oh, I got it. I'm giving a default. No, perfect sex means take the time to craft a pleasurable experience for her. And that takes talking about it. Talk about sex and talk about sex and talk about sex until the awkwardness is gone. Until you're comfortable talking about sex.
I thought this was my podcast, dude.
This is my podcast. This is black man therapy.
Oh, Lord have
BMT.
mercy.
No, talk about it till the awkwardness is gone because you want what's optimal, right? Always. Things change. Bodies change. Things shift. You thought her cervix was over here. But after 2 babies, her cervix is over there now. And you wouldn't know that unless you were communicating.
I don't know what to say to that. You are leaving me speechless. I'm not going to even lie.
So my example for the first was like a plant. I like to give examples. I'm an analogy man. The second one is a project. So you come together, you have to do a project, but you're not using words. You're not talking. Could you complete the project? Yes. I think you could do the project without talking. But that product will not be perfected. It will not be what it could be if you're not communicating. So you talk about it, you get the best product, right? And so that's why communication, perfecting sex is important in marriage.
Okay, so I do have a question. Why is it for men difficult to communicate about sex?
I think it may be difficult to communicate about sex because obviously it makes you vulnerable. It makes you vulnerable. So like if I'm married to my wife and I make a sexual advance and she says not today, I've built calluses around that. So if you say no, that's fine. I open up my journal, I pin it down, the time and the place.
No, you
and
don't.
then I'm ready to ask again.
Oh, Lord.
Now, when it comes to, hey babe, how was it? Was it good? Did you like it? You know, the moans kind of sound artificial. I want to know what's really happening. I'm afraid of the answer.
Yes.
I'm petrified.
Yeah.
You know, but I have to, it's not going to get better unless you can be open and honest with me. So I have to make that space available to you. So, of course, you got to be vulnerable.
So I'll say this. I feel like oftentimes women do not communicate about sex because we are so careful. We're trying to be so careful to not bruise the male ego. You know, because for some reason it's so tied to like being a man, like, you know, doing sex so good or whatever y'all think sex is so good. But like, I'll tell you, and you know, I don't have to tell you, but tell everyone else or tell the other men, sex for women it's so, I don't even want to say complex. It's, what is the word? I feel like women are multifaceted in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Right? So there's so much going on at once.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. If men are taking a formulaic approach to sex when it comes to women, you're oftentimes not going to please her.
Okay.
And this is why I feel like a lot of women, unfortunately, talk about how they don't have orgasms. Right. And like you mentioned, it changes too. Like before kids, after kids, you know, maybe you got sick for some reason, you get older, all these things change. There's just so much. It's infinite, at least for women, I'm going to say on our end. It's infinite.
Men change too, by the way. Not as much, you know, but men are changing too. So even, you know, being honest with that, you bring your stuff, I bring my stuff. We come up with a solution together. You know, but I think men honestly have to feel like they would be safe if they brought you that stuff.
Oh.
And you wouldn't belittle them because they little already. So, you know, you got to talk.
Wait, what?
Woo! Next point.
But, sorry. But just to cap off that point, you said that it's hard for men to be vulnerable about the conversation of sex, which I think, like you said, is for everyone. But is there something that is like, why is it tied so closely to being a man?
Culture. You know, I can only speak about the American culture. I believe it's this way in other parts of the world as well. There are a few things that make a man, and I think that's the first problem.
Okay.
For a guy, you got money and you give good sex. That's it. Like, that's not enough. And so, to be a good guy, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the tenets of what makes a man a man. Can he please a woman? Can he rock her world, really? Can he perform, really? Because at the end of the day, a person could be doing all this, flipping it, catching it, rubbing it, and doing all this other stuff, and the woman is just like, great, you're the man. Who's the man? You're the man. And then she's just waiting for him to leave so she can go in the bathroom with the shower head.
Take care of herself.
Take care of herself.
So, sorry, I have a follow-up question. So, do men feel like the pressure to perform in the bedroom? Like that is your sole job? I don't feel like I've felt that.
I used to.
Okay.
Before this became a conversation,
Yeah.
that was my default, which was, okay, she's waiting for me to rock her world, and that's the thought that she has in her head. And, you know, honestly speaking, that may be the thought she has in her head, but like you said, I'm only understanding it on one layer. You got multiple layers that I need to get to, and I'm like, I'm going to stay on the surface layer and rock your world in this way, and that may not be super effective. So I think taking the time, even if you are trying to rock her world, taking the time to understand her many layers is what's going to help improve your sex life.
That's good. I think that's a good wrap up for the second point. Okay, so moving on to your third point.
Okay. Point 3. Don't take stimulants.
Again, I hope that you're going to explain this because
Just
what?
give me a minute. I have a personal story.
Ooh, we got a story?
Testimony.
Let me tell you, we love stories on this podcast.
Okay, good. Here's a story.
Okay.
So it's an anniversary. My wife is away. She's coming into town, and it's our anniversary. So she was away, coming into town. That's sex automatically, okay? But it's her anniversary. She's coming into town, so I gotta rock her world, like we were just talking about.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, bro, like I need to, like, I need to,
I know.
it's her anniversary. And I think I got too much in my own head. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna need to support myself in some way so that I can make this the night of her dreams. So I'm looking for, less invasive ways. I don't want to take no Viagra, no pills, because those stuff makes you dependent on that, by the way. You get dependent on it. So, of course, if you have a mental health issue, of course you're taking that stuff. But a lot of young people these days...
You mean a physical health issue?
Physical health issue,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, my bad. A lot of young men are taking Viagra and all this other stuff, and it's vanity. Also, for me, it was vanity as well. So,
Okay.
disappoint myself. But I didn't want to start that process. I'm like, no, I'm not taking that. So I'm looking for like less invasive options, and I found this Lacodon spray.
I'm sorry, what?
Lacodon?
Ooh. Lidocaine?
Lidocaine.
Which is like a numbing spray.
It's a numbing spray.
Okay.
That's exactly what it Hims.
Okay, this is not ad. Don't say no.
Oh, sorry. $24. I wasted $24. I wasted it. Put 2 coats on there, like a coat of paint. No, it was like 2 coats.
Were you supposed to?
No, it's supposed to be 2 coats.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm following. I'm reading instructions.
Okay.
I looked at the back, and I looked at the instructions on the back of the box. Both
Okay.
instructions.
Okay.
It says 2 coats.
2 coats.
2 coats.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on there. It got my finger. It smells like bug spray. I said, hell, no. I ain't putting this. It smells like bug spray. It tastes like bug spray too, by the way. It just tasted my finger. I washed it off. Okay?
Why did you taste it?
Because it smelled like, I wanted to know if it was poison. It smelled very chemically.
You the nigga that died.
I just nibbled this finger a little bit.
You're the cat.
I washed it off. And I'm like, because, first of all, that's not good for brain. That's the first thing. I clean it off. And then I'm like, but remember, anniversary, a lot of pressure I put on myself. I just sprayed like one coat back on. And what I tell you, I felt nothing. It was a waste of money. My wife knew I felt nothing because she got asked, "Do you feel it?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." Yeah, I lied like a rug. I couldn't feel nothing the whole night, bro.
This is not what I was expecting for this episode.
The whole night. So I tried it. I threw that can away when I got back. Worst $24 I ever spent. And the thing is, I was in my head. Honestly, I was in my head, and believing all the hype I put on myself. So if you're doing it for vanity reasons, please don't do it. Please don't. So while I was looking for other ways, I found like vitamins you can take for the rest of your life. And it does a whole bunch of other things as well.
Like natural.
Natural, herbal. You know what I mean? Like natural stuff. So, get out of your own head. If you are looking for something to help you, do something holistic. Holistic.
Was that the whole point?
Yes.
Your one
Don't take stimulants. Unless you have to. Hey, yo, listen. If
you spike it. Go ahead.
Listen, let me know if you ever took them pills with the horse on it in the gas station. I was this close to getting that pill because it was like $5. But then I said, wait, hold up. This is coming from a gas station. I need a doctor in a coat to give me a pill, like in a lab coat, to go to a doctor and get. I'm not going to take this pill out the gas station. But then I didn't want to do that either. So, Lacodon spray.
Lidocaine. I don't know what Lacodon is.
I liked it on, but I didn't like it.
I can't breathe. So anyways, one of your points that transform your sex life over the course of our marriage is do not take stimulants. I just want to confirm that's what you're saying.
Point number 4.
Wait. Okay. Oh, okay. How long do you feel like... Oh, okay.
No, I think you just think about it one day. You're just like, I see these commercials, you know what I mean? And I'm like, people talk about 4 or 5 rounds. They can't do that naturally. You need some time to recover. I'm like,
4 or 5 rounds is not realistic.
Exactly. So that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Oh, that's the point.
We have to start from a place of reality.
Okay.
Right? If you're doing these things in order to reach the unreachable, you're going to hurt yourself.
And the other person.
You're going to harm yourself and the other person. Okay? For sure.
So what's interesting is I can add to that story only from my perspective because it was our anniversary. I had been out of town for a week. And, to be honest, we're both, I think, expecting something special. But like Junior said, something was off. And I'm very intuitive. I'm just that, I don't know. And when you've been with somebody for as long as we've been together, you kind of just know like something's off. Now, Junior, what he said is true. He's keeping a straight face. But, after everything, I'm just like, hey, it's something feels off or whatever. And thank God he came clean. And, we talked about it. It wasn't nothing deep, but
no, I'm so happy
very interesting
that you asked me that because I was like, maybe I should just try it again later. But I really didn't want to. So when you asked me, I took it as an opportunity to come clean and be rid of it.
Yeah.
And be done with it.
Yeah.
So.
But what I told him, though, for me, and this is why communication is important, like one of your other points, it's not important for me. Like, for me, I don't need 3-4 rounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, if something comes up, it's spontaneous, no problem. But that's not something I need. So it's like, it's not necessary for you to go that extra mile, at least for me. If you want to do it for yourself, I don't know what to tell you. But I don't need that. But that was a good point. Next point. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Next point is don't. If you don't already, don't. Or stop watching pornography.
Porn. Okay, this keeps coming up.
Yeah, no.
I talked about porn in my episode
Yeah,
too.
men and women, by the way. I don't talk to
Come
men,
on now.
but men and women. Be bound.
Women be into porn.
No, I know they be into porn. They be into porn and they be into porn. Like that, like that. No, but so married men watch porn for 2 reasons.
Okay.
To help them in the bedroom, or for some personal reason, like seeking comfort, joy, rest, peace. I say those things in air quotes. Okay. Don't do it. Whatever your reason for watching it, it will destroy your intimacy with your wife. She will not only become less and less and less desirable to you, you also begin to think of her like those women in the videos, like an object, like someone who's here to serve your needs, sire. And that's not going to fly with most wives. Most women get married to be treated right, not to be treated like an object, not to be treated wrong. And you watch porn long enough, you eventually seek porn with skin on. And that means cheat. That means strip clubs, Ashley Madison, chat rooms, emotionally cheating. All those things because of watching porn. So I know men who have ruined their marriage. 17-year-old marriage. Wow. And ruined their relationship with their kids.
Wow. And
are now trying to get it back. And they said it started with pornography. They said it started with porn. So now, a moment of transparency. So now I'm also recovering from porn right now. I started viewing it 7 years ago.
What did you say is a porn addiction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Porn addiction. You got to say porn addiction.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to be free to say, or else you won't get help. And that started 7 years ago when I worked with LeBron James at the Juice Spot. Okay, don't believe me? Ask Jefferson Noel. He is a famous Miami politician.
He's not. Don't do that to my friends.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. You know, technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Yeah, don't do it. Shakespeare said it best in Macbeth. He said, it provokes and unprovokes. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. That's what he said. Okay? So if I talk to guys, married men, they're like, oh, we watch porn. Like men and women would say to like help us in the bedroom, make it spicy or learn some things. But it just doesn't work. So my next example, analogy man, is like watching an app for basketball highlights. And like, oh, watch this app. Watch all these highlights. It'll make you better as a basketball player. You're watching these highlights. You download the app. You're watching all the time. And by the time you're like 40, 50 hours deep into this app, and it took your legs. You ain't got no legs no more. Just go with me. Because the app wasn't created to help you. It was created to make you dependent on it. That's what it was created for. That's its actual purpose. And so watching pornography is not going to help you be better in the bedroom. It's going to help you move further and further away from intimacy with your wife, like I mentioned before, right? Until you have to watch porn just to get it up, or until you suffer some side effects like ED, right? Or premature ejaculation. Fertility issues, until you leave your wife to go seek sex somewhere else, right? Like I mentioned before, right? So it's funny how watching this sex on tape is like, oh, it's supposed to be helping us, but it's actually taking away from you until there's nothing left. So just don't do it.
I feel like I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Because porn is interesting because, they say don't yuck the yum. Right, and a lot of people think that porn is just part of a relationship. It's just one of those things. It's a tool. Like sex toys, like Kama Sutra books and fuzzy dice and handcuffs. Porn is just one of those things. There was a few things that you said, but one thing that you said is that desire. How do you feel like from when you were heavily watching porn to now, it has changed your desire for me? Good, bad, just.
Yeah, no, I think my desire is a lot better without pornography.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's a lot better because with pornography, honestly, so it's an addiction, right? It's a behavioral addiction. So we're not taking any like pharmaceuticals, medicine, but it's a behavioral addiction, just like gambling. It's a legit addiction, but it's a behavioral addiction. But this is an addiction that seeks a novel experience every single time. What that means is what worked for you in the past is not going to continue to work for you. You have to continue to seek more and more novel forms of pornography to get that high again, to get that adrenaline rush. I gave you the definition for sex earlier. And porn is just a shortcut to that, right? So you're going to feel those endorphins that release. You're going to feel those marriage-like feelings after coming. You're going to feel that high for a second. right? Like I said, people seek that stuff for comfort, for joy, for peace. In the long run, you get less comfort, less joy, less peace, less whatever, because it's really a destructive practice. And so I don't think it has any space in a marriage bed. I don't think it has
Wow.
any space, any legitimacy at all, honestly. Single, married.
So, how was your desire for me when you were heavily watching porn? Was it not perverted, but like,
Well, I said it already.
warped? Yeah, I guess I'm asking you specifically
Okay,
in our
specifically.
relationship. Yeah.
So in our relationship, so I said I started watching 7 years ago. The person told me when you can't have sex with your wife, view porn, and that made so much sense to me. I was super young, and that's what ended up happening. Right? So if my wife says no, I can watch porn, which means I don't have to stress my wife out anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to come back to her a second time. I can take care of myself. That's it for anything, right? That's for periods. That's for whenever I need to take care of myself. I don't have to put the pressure on my wife, and I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not on websites looking for doubletree.com. I'm not doing any of that stuff, right? And so I thought it was okay, and it was introduced to me as natural and good. However, it's sinister, bro. It's sinister because it doesn't bring you back to your wife. It takes you away from real life and brings you into fantasy. And it's hard to snap out of that fantasy because in your mind, you're living in this world for so long where these video vixens are here to like please your every desire. You start thinking that's real life. So even your wife, who is here to like help you achieve some of that desire, you're like, nah, you got to do this and do that. And and I remember one time you said to me, you was like, oh, I know where you got that from. And this is what really scared me. You said, I know where you got that from. I said, what? You said, you got that from porn. I was like, what? You was like, yeah, I'm not a porn star. I was like, oh, shoot. Like,
I don't remember saying that.
nah, for real. You be like that sometimes. But that really helped me knock me back. The thing about porn is it's pleasurable. It's not like it's not pleasurable. That's why so many people are addicted to it in silence. It brings pleasure. And you don't realize how much it's taking and taking and taking until someone can make you stumble and look back at it. And you're like, oh, shoot, thank you for giving me this moment of clarity, this pause so I can have relief. So I think, I think it's really a replacement for real intimacy and real love. That's its purpose, is to replace what you actually got, which means you're going to end up with just Pamela Henderson at the end of the day if you keep going. So you don't want that.
I think that you explained that so well. I'm not going to ask you to over-explain. I would like to share my perspective on this in our relationship specifically, because I do remember that point in time where it was heavy. It was heavy. I don't remember because, to be honest, I wasn't, I didn't know exactly what was going on, and I didn't know it was an addiction at that point. But what I do remember is that you started to ask me to do a lot of different things, which in my, I'm like, oh, we're like 2 years married. That makes sense. And my perspective is just like, oh, we want to spice it up and make it new. But I remember it becoming burdensome, and where it didn't feel like loving, and it didn't feel like you were trying to connect to me, or you were trying to have fun with me. It kind of felt like, hey, do this because I like it. Like, do this because I want to do it. I want to try something new. And to clarify, it wasn't like without consent or anything crazy like that. Of course, I said yes, I obliged because I wanted us to stay connected. But we were going for two different points. Like we were trying to achieve two different things. Like you mentioned, I think you were trying to fulfill the fantasy that you were seeing in porn. And I didn't remember saying that thing about the porn star. And I was trying to connect with you emotionally and intimately. So that I feel like that was kind of a rough, and there was consequences for that.
Yes.
There was consequences for that in regards to the porn addiction, because it really did drive a wedge between us sexually, and it made communication very difficult, which I've talked about this on the podcast. Not in detail, but like it made communication difficult around sex, which continued to push us apart. And then eventually, thank the Lord, we had a breakthrough and we were able to kind of revamp, reevaluate, build a totally new foundation around sex. And it's almost like we got a second wind in sex in our relationship where we're starting, completely over, and it's been great.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the genesis of that second win, like I said, to just go back to my second point, was me wanting to really get down to the bottom of it. I was very curious, and I'm like, man, rather than me assuming I know everything about our sex life, let me just talk to her. How is it on your end? Like, how's it going? Like, what's the weather like? Down like what's going on? And that's what really I think spawned it, because oftentimes couples are not going to discuss that because the guy's not willing to discuss. It's just a non-starter. But I think I had to discuss. I had to speak to you because I wanted you to be my partner in helping me get better myself. So I'm grateful that you were there.
So last thing, what was that thing then that kind of sparked you to change? Because was it you saw that I was hurting? Was it, something in yourself where you're like, this is not healthy for me? What was that thing that you realized this is not benefiting my marriage or myself?
I think it was both. If I had to give it to something, I would say the hurt in you. It's just unfortunate. Oftentimes people don't see themselves until they see the backsplash of hurt from somebody else's life. Like, oh snap, I really am the person I thought I wasn't. Like, well, thank you. You don't see the wake of destruction you caused. It takes a wake of destruction for you to have some self-reflection. Unfortunately, that happens often. And so I think it was my wake of destruction that helped me wake up and realize, like, oh shoot, there's real consequences to my actions. It's not just hurting me. Remember, I was told, like, this is just for you. It's, it has nothing to do with other people. It doesn't impact the lives of people around you, but it does. A lot of stuff you do impacts the people around you, especially the people closest to you.
That's good. Dang, we could wrap up that point. You have one more point?
Yes.
Okay, so last point.
And I think I started with my first point. I wanted to end with the point just as strong.
Okay.
Last point is to yank that hair like you're starting a mower. Okay? I want you to uproot as many follicles from the hypodermis.
Dude.
I want you to pluck the whole head, okay? Pluck the whole head, okay? Ball it and breed it, you know what I mean? That's my last, no, that's not my last point.
Are you serious?
That's not my last point. No.
This is my podcast, right?
Ball it and breed. No, so the last point is to be your own man. Be your own man. So if you like to pluck, the whole head while you're having sex, and your wife says she's willing to wear lace fronts for the rest of her life, let that be what you do. If you like to have silly sex where you're both laughing and carrying on, and you both agree to do that, then do that. If you like to have sex in the pitch dark with one candle lit, with Marvin Gaye drinking Grey Goose and apple juice, and she agrees to do that, then do that. Don't take advice from no man. And no, the irony is not lost on me for saying that. I used to ask for advice, and that pull on her hair, that was advice I got. It worked for him, it didn't work for me. Okay? That was advice I got. Okay? His wife did indeed wear lace fronts. Listen, you want to try something out, that's fine. Okay? But don't try to emulate somebody and what they're doing in their relationship, in their bed. Okay? Like we mentioned this before, sex is a super uncomfortable topic to talk about. Guys don't really talk about sex in reality. It's usually grandstanding, posturing. And so you're hearing this, and you try to go emulate lies. And that's not reality. Okay? If you try to do that, if you try to go emulate these lies, you're going to be like me. Okay? With the Lycodon spray. All right? Lidocaine. That too. You're going to be 2 hours after. 2 hours
Can't
after.
feel your wee-wee.
Okay? 2 hours before he came down from talking to God. Because his face was toward the sky. And I told him, man, it's time to go. 2 hours, that's going to be you. And you don't want that. on your conscience. So be your own man, as long as you discuss this with your wife as well.
I think that is a perfect way to end, because I say a lot on this podcast that, you know, I'm trying to give advice and tips and all those things. But at the end of the day, what this podcast is mainly for you to do is to think. Ask yourself questions, be curious, but ultimately your relationship, your sex life, finances, communication, whatever that thing is really between you and your spouse. It's so unique, like a fingerprint, and you and your spouse are the only ones that can decide what is good for you. And it's funny because I started my first episode with consent, and it's really about two people saying yes and none having more power over the other one. So it's important, and I think you did a really, really good job. I think all those points are so good. I really just want to reiterate what Junior said, is your relationship is your own. And just take everything that we say with a grain of salt, ask yourself those questions, and work it out with your spouse. So that is all that we have for this episode. Junior, do you have any final words?
I do not. Besides, thank you all for tuning into this episode of Black Marriage Therapy. If you haven't yet followed us on Instagram and Facebook, follow us at Black Marriage Therapy. Thanks again for listening. See you again soon.
Bye, y'all.